Hello and welcome to Tools in the Shed, a podcast powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that has caught our eye this week. I'm James and with me is Crafty.
Hello.
Who's been putting tyres under pressure off-road.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
And Matt.
Yeah, g'day.
Who's been charging into the future one Tesla at a time.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll update you on everyone's favourite cyborg dragon enthusiast in this week's MuskWatch. So stay with us. But first, some feedback, which is terrific, as always. Thank you. Greg Wallace. He likes Richard's Jag X-Pace review, which is, not exactly in the podcast, but thank you very much. It's been very well received. He says he's leaning towards cars with anything more than humble performance being a waste of money here in the nanny country.
Right.
Was it the nanny country?
Humble performance.
Some humble. So, I don't know.
Oh, I suppose I can do 0 to 107.
I suppose I can do 0 to 100 in 3.2 seconds.
I suppose I can.
I'm giving it a nudge.
Speed
Can you?
cameras, 5 kilometres over the limit, and your pocket is rifled. Forester, in its best dressed form, is a better idea with 100 grand left over. So that's where he's at. He's thinking that is a sensible transport option.
So this
Good
bloke's
on you, Greg.
thinking of a Forester as opposed to a Jaguar F-Pace SVR with a 5-litre supercharged V8.
Yeah,
Who
that's
are
right.
you, mate?
Oh, come on. He's a loyal and regular comment. He's a loyal listener.
2.5 with a CVT. That'll win it.
Moving on. Roto Ihu, another person who
Good on
gets
you,
in touch
Roto.
occasionally, says, I don't get this Audi line of blame the WLTP, which last week we were talking about Audi's kind of nosedive in terms of sales, new car sales during this year. Now, for those that aren't familiar, that stands for Worldwide Harmonised Light Vehicle Test Procedure. So that's primarily about economy, so finding a yardstick against which all new cars are judged. Why has VAG, Volkswagen Audi Group, struggled so much with this? BMW and Merc seem to have dealt with it. Reckons argument regarding new models is also fallacious. Hasn't BMW updated half its range over the same period? Personally, I hope Australians have finally realised Audis are just... These are his words, not ours. Overpriced Skodas without the simply clever touches.
Ouch.
Okay. Ouch.
That's got to hurt.
Roto
Okay,
Ihu is a cranky man.
He's
or
on the
Good on
person,
you,
grumble.
though.
or woman,
He was on the
or whoever.
grumbles. They were on the grumbles when they were giving us that feedback. Hammer rocks.
He's
Hammer.
back.
Hey.
Look, he like Crafty, he's a four-wheel driver and camper, and he enjoys the, quote, beautiful natural parks, state forests and beaches. He's baffled by people who vandalise these places by leaving rubbish and or damaging facilities. Whatever happened to decency and respect?
Yeah.
Obviously, they've never heard of the tread lightly and or leave a place as good or better than you found it adage. And Crafty came back with a nice reply on the YouTube comments. So thank you, Hammer. We can only agree with you on that one.
Good on you, Hammer.
Wax 333 on a similar theme. If someone found a way to make money from waste, it would be the most profitable business the world would ever see. So,
Hey, there's an Indonesian mob that's working on turning plastic into diesel.
Oh, really?
How about that?
Wow.
That'd
How-
work.
Yeah.
Is
That'd
it
help.
clean diesel?
Well,
Whatever that is.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Grudlin 74. Could Crafty do a public service announcement about cleaning up campsites around Australia? He says to Chesto, the Kia Ute would be awesome, but so too the Nero they sell in other markets. Now, the Nero, as I understand, is a hybrid SUV.
Yeah, and you can get the e-Nero, which is the fully electric
one.
And word has it that car is coming to Australia.
Oh,
So-
really? There you go.
And Grudlin 74 says, finally, JC, 2 words, curiosity show. That was folklore in my childhood. And look, I agree. I've been a viewer of that program. I'm just at a bit of a loss as to what it related to in the last podcast. But there's something there. And all I can do is agree. And Prince Dog Official, the Ram sales discussion we had, as in they're doing very well in this market,
Good
is on the
toes.
up.
Yep.
He recalls the criticism Ford copped for not putting a powerful petrol engine in the Ranger Raptor, and Ford justifying the decision by alleging that Aussie buyers wouldn't buy it due to range anxiety, i.e. high fuel usage. So if you're using these in remote areas, etc., of a performance petrol engine. Asks if there was a performance option such as the turbo petrol or aspirated petrol V8 in a Ranger or Hilux, these Ram buyers may have gone in a different direction. And I've got to say, when I saw the Ram Ranger Raptor, I thought that's a car that cries out for a high-performance engine. That's not to say it doesn't have one. It's just the perception is 2 litres and turbo somehow traditionally doesn't fit that macho kind of mould. What do you make of it, Crafty? I mean, you've had a long history with that car since its launch.
That's an outdated sort of view, isn't it? I mean, with technology and everything so precise these days, I mean, you don't need a big capacity engine. And I mean, that's been proven many times. I think a lot of us are guilty of holding on to the past.
Right.
You know, for better or worse. I also love a,
You
V8
live predominantly in the 50s, don't you?
He's got some history he likes to reflect upon.
Yeah.
Yes,
But I reckon that people are buying a Ram because they do actually want a slightly bigger ute as well.
Yeah.
Not only do they want a petrol V8 engine, they want you can't get a petrol V8 Commodore ute or Falcon ute anymore, so they want the size as well, which just happens to have a bit of status with it. So a petrol F-150 with a V8, for example, might have a bit more.
Well, that's true. It's a kind of size plus powertrain question, isn't it? They're not necessarily connected.
No.
In that some people might want a big petrol engine, some just want the bigger size vehicle.
Exactly.
And I do see a fair few Rams around, and Maddie's bloody hit it on the head. I see them carting horse trailers, massive things, because they're good towing platforms.
Too right.
And I like your use of the.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's why Nissan's falling over itself to try and get the Titan here.
Yeah.
And HSV's been doing the, I want to say, Silverado. And there is a market.
Yeah,
for these much bigger things. So,
absolutely.
But in the smaller vehicles, if they did have the bigger engine, it wouldn't necessarily be the case that Ram buyers would go for it. Because it seems like they're after the scale of the vehicle.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Now, Crafty, we're going to stay with your good self, and it's a theme that you cycle around to on a pretty regular basis. But give us the lowdown on lowering or raising your tyre pressures.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you blokes know the value of this with regards to safety and tyre wear and all those sort of things if you spend your time on bitumen.
Well, sometimes I do lower my tyre pressure just too rapidly because I've, run over a nail or something like that.
That will result in quite a rapid drop
in tyre pressure.
But I just want to make the point, and I've ranted about this before, and I've written numerous stories about it on carsguide.com.au. Is the value of being aware of your tyre pressures at different times, and it depends. And there is no perfect tyre pressure. I mean, people often ask me, well, what's the perfect tyre pressure for bitumen? Well, what are you driving? How many people do you have in the vehicle? Do you have pets, gear?
What kind of rubber are you running?
What kind of tyres what time of day is it? How long have you been driving today? Have you been driving on other sort of surfaces?
Where were you born? Tell us about your upbringing.
Exactly. Give me a urine sample, but that's just for personal reasons.
And a beef sample.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a crucial thing because you stay aware of that and you adjust them to suit your vehicle. And I've always sort of held to the view that you can pretty much go anywhere and climb over anything if you are judicious with your tyre pressures. It's and there are different tyre pressure ranges for different surfaces. If you're driving gravel or sand, mud, you're going to have to adjust them to suit that. And again, your vehicle and whether you've been driving since sunrise and all that sort of thing. But I just think people, and I've seen people stuck on the beach, really frustrated. The wife and husband yelling at each other and whatever. All they had to do was drop the tyre pressures and off you go.
Yeah.
I mean,
did you step into that particular vortex?
I didn't. No, not at all.
Right.
I mean, sometimes, and sometimes people receive it quite, nice, civilly. They'll say, oh, yeah, that's one thing I didn't think of, and they'll do it, and you'll help them out, and off they go.
Right.
Other times, it's not your position to step in. And,
I see.
But that would alleviate a lot of stress off-roading.
Yep.
I think people just run straight off the bitumen and onto whatever surface and think, she'll be right. Everything's going to be okay.
Yep.
And then you pop a tyre on
Hence the value of like an onboard compressor that
Absolutely,
you can plug into a 12-volt outlet and let your tyres down, but you've also got the facility then to get them back up if you need to.
Or a tyre pressure monitoring system that's on a lot of SUVs and vehicles these days. Just keep an eye on them. And I mean, be mindful of what time of day it is, how hot it is.
Yeah.
Like tyre pressures in the desert, in the Simpson Desert, for instance. If it's a hot day and you've only been driving for a short time, the tyre pressures could be completely different to what you started with.
Yep. It kind of opens up the whole question of just tyres being so fundamental, obviously. They're the contact point between you and the road or whatever surface it is you're on.
They are.
But the lack of attention they get, seemingly. You know, that they're just black and round, and so long as they're there, that's good. And if they make it through rego, good one. But really, I use a rule of thumb, others may disagree, every time you fill the tank is just to have a look at the pressures, see what's going on. And if you also just a visual check when you get in the car.
Absolutely,
because there might be a chop in the sidewall, there could be anything
little
going
stone
on. Little
chip or something,
exactly.
or cut. Also, and that's another thing that I do, JC, but as well as checking all the running rubber, you check your spare. People always forget about the spare and go, oh no,
it's going to be no good to you if you get out there. You've got a flat, and then you've got a flat on the back or under the tub or whatever.
And you don't have a compressor or whatever. You can't, can't put a bit of air in it, and then you're all washed up.
But that is, I think, you are the exception to the rule there, JC. A lot of people that I know would never ever check their tyres until it's rego time. They never even check the pressures because you go to rego time and you go, it needs new tyres, and they'll go, oh, have you been checking your pressures?
I remember walking into the school where a couple of our kids were going, the primary school, and walking past an XC70 Volvo that was parked there, and as the person that was driving it was getting out, I said, you have a 50-cent sized chop in the sidewall of your rear tyre. Were you aware of that? I think it's probably going to blow up. And oh my goodness, it was obvious as the nose on your face, but people don't check their tyres.
And as well as safety reasons, I mean, obviously wear and tear on your tyre, they're a big investment. I mean, they're pretty costly if you get a good set of tyres on your car. So wear and tear and the safety issue and the comfort, like how comfortable it is. So all those things, and I mean, it doesn't take long. You know how it is. You just pop over to the servo thing,
but in this time-poor society in which we live, the extra 2 minutes to check your pressures can be too much.
Another really important point I wanted to make just really quickly is that the number of people getting stranded in remote areas and coming to grief, like dying, and they could be tourists, backpackers, they could be locals. And the police have arrived, or the emergency services have arrived days later, and the person's obviously died, and all the emergency services people have done have dropped the tyre pressures and driven the vehicle straight out.
And the vehicle's been drivable.
Just driven it straight out.
Wow.
So people get flustered and, sort of think, oh, it's a mechanical thing and,
I've got to walk to safety? You don't do that.
No, you don't. You stay with the vehicle. I mean, that's a fundamental thing. But just have a check. I mean, hop out of the vehicle, take a breath, relax, just have a look at the thing. And, chances are you can drop the tyre pressures and away you go. So.
All right. Terrific. Sage advice, as always. Thank you, Crafty.
No
and
problem,
we'd love to hear your thoughts on the tyre pressure things. Have you ever found that the saviour? You've been in a tight spot, you drop the tyre pressures and off you go. It'd be great to hear about it.
Or have you rolled it off the bead?
Oh, yeah, off the bead, yes.
And ended up with a flapper.
What, back in the 1920s?
Yeah.
Out for a night on the town.
Rolling one off the bead meant a different thing back then. Let me tell you.
Now, keep it going there, M4, because we need to talk about something that's very 2019.
Oh, yeah.
Not 1919.
No, 19.
And a vehicle that has been occupying your consciousness of late. Fire away.
The Tesla Model 3. So it's actually quite 2017.
Good
we
point.
are a bit late to the party
when
it comes to the Model 3. But it's finally arrived in Australia. And in the last week and a bit, I've had enough time in both of the cars. I've had enough. I'm done with it. I'm finished. I don't need any more Model 3 in my life.
Throw your headphones down. Storm out.
I'm out. No, we had the entry-level version, which is called the Standard Range Plus. And then we had the top-spec version, which is the Performance. And obviously appealing to two different buyers. The Standard Range Plus is the $66,000 car before you add any optional extras. And then there's the top spec Performance, which is a $91,200 car.
So the $66,000 car would be the equivalent of the promised $35,000 car in the
US?
Yes.
So the $35,000 I think is calculated on the fact that you can get incentives and so forth in the US.
Over there,
You can't get them here. Depending on where you're buying in the US, there are states that don't have incentives. But in Australia, there's no incentives, so you've got to cop full whack. But even so, at $66,000, it's got the longest range of any electric vehicle so far for that price tag.
Oh, really?
There are cars that are more affordable, but they don't have that level of range. So the claimed range for this particular model is 460 kilometres, which is enough to get you from here to the snow. Sydney, that is, Sydney to the snow. Melbourne to the snow. Or, you might be able to go for a bit of a road trip. There are superchargers all over the place now, so that helps in that regard. But there are different versions of the Model 3. So the top one, the one that we had, the entry-level version, as I said, 460 kilometres of range. We didn't see quite that good of an outcome on our test.
It's not a surprise.
No, but cold weather, mountain roads, twisty roads, not the ideal conditions for the car. But we managed an average-ish of 300 kilometres of range, which is still more than you can get in anything else at this level. So, and it also does 0 to 100 in 5.6 seconds. I mean, that's fast. It's a lot faster than a lot of cars. So
bet.
And those things, it's just
instant,
right at the foot. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Crazy. And
that's what blows me away about those things.
But then I got into the performance, which does 0 to 100 in 3.4 seconds.
Yeah, it's properly fast.
It reorganizes your insides a little bit. It's that sort of acceleration that makes you go, So it's
unreal.
It's really, really, really fast in a straight line, and that's what a lot of people will buy that car for, because it's a party trick. You can show your mates and go, "Oh, look how fast we go." And off, and
then they get in the car.
But it's also pretty accomplished through the corners, because this version has the top spec. 2 versions have all-wheel drive. The entry-level version is rear-wheel drive. I actually prefer the driving feel and character of the rear-wheel drive car. It's just a bit more pure in terms of how it drives. The all-wheel drive one's steering's not as good, but the acceleration you get, because you've got the motor out the front and a motor at the back, it's just you're off. And it has a claimed range of 560 kilometres.
And that's just a whopping big battery, isn't it?
That's big.
It's got the big battery.
And then there's the version the version that splits them is the inventively named long range.
Oh, right.
And it has 620 k's of EV range.
Jeez.
So that's obviously a claim.
Claimed, yeah. And
I
how did
reckon
you go on the performance, like in real world?
In real world, it was close to 360. So not too bad. Not 560. But I was doing some acceleration checking.
Evaluation.
Yes, up a mountain pass with a cameraman.
I'm sure the hinge on the accelerator pedal was working.
It's just the Matty Campbell heavy right foot just in action.
But I would love to have a go of the mid-spec long-range model and just try and see just how far you can get on a full tank of electricity. But it is, it's an important car. Not without its issues. JC, you had a little bit of time in the Model 3, and there were a few elements that you disagreed with.
Oh, look, there were some issues around alignment of panels.
Yes.
There was some
so build quality,
fit and finish questions. And that territory has been well kind of covered.
We've trodden over that.
But I suppose with the evidence of our own eyes, there were some things where if you were a new car buyer and that rolled out of the showroom towards you and you were asked to take it home, you'd say, no, I'm not going to take that
Give
home.
That a miss,
visible gaps, spaces where you could see through door shut lines towards the bodywork. Just not good enough.
So, and I've actually called that out in my review of the car. I think, especially if you're buying the performance model at $100,000-ish, if on the road, it's a lot of money. And sure, there's going to be people who are willing to overlook those sorts of things because it's got the hand-built feeling to it. But I can't. I honestly, I would turn my back on that car if it rolled out to me and they said, "This is your car." I'd say, "Nope, build me another one." Because
it's a lot of dosh.
I mean, and what does it tell you if this could have been one of the cars that was built in the tent?
The wedding marquee.
Yes, or it does that say to you that there might be other corners that have been cut? And that's the bit that really gets to me.
That's my concern.
Indicative of broader issues,
possibly. The technology may be fantastic. Well, I mean, that's all well and good, but if the build quality, if they haven't sort of, paid attention to those sort of things.
But our colleague Richard Berry made the point, which I think was a good one, that various mobs in the US that it's their business to take cars apart and forensically examine the contents of the car, the cost per piece, what it's going to cost to build, etc. And various reports have said, look, the electronics, as you might expect in this car and all of the software that drives it, is aerospace grade. You know, you just don't find that in most consumer passenger cars.
Yeah.
But the bodywork and the actual hardware,
construction
of the car is obviously the product of someone who said, well, we can do this better.
Yeah.
Forget all of these 100 and so years of experience. We're going to do this Silicon Valley style and reinvent the wheel and do it better. And on the evidence of the cars that we've seen, that may not be the case.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, what would have, looking back, what would have been the best outcome for Tesla would have been perhaps getting someone, an established car maker on side to oversee that, or even take over the actual body builds of the cars and have them just provide the tech, the platform, the underpinnings, all the stuff that you need to get the Tesla experience, and then they just, you know, hand over that bit of building the car.
Someone who's got experience in that field. What I don't get, what I don't understand now, is people still expressing quite strong range anxiety. I mean, that to me sounds like, you know, if you're going for a road trip, you factor in stops to fuel up and you know, brakes for the driver and everyone else. So that to me, I mean, range anxiety, I mean, does not exist. And I mean, the infrastructure around, you know, supply points of power along the way are improving all the time.
Definitely.
So I don't think that's a valid concern now. I mean, you know, people are saying, you know, I'm worried about not being able to get there.
It's definitely dissipating, but I think there's still time for people to, you know, get to the point where, you know, I honestly think the 1,000 kilometre range, that's the point when people will go, okay, I can do this. You know, and it's a mental barrier.
Yeah, for sure.
But and also obviously cost.
But those people coming to you, Crafty, you are a magnet for people with problems.
Oh,
now
exactly,
they come to you about anything and everything. You know,
well, it's often when I'm lurking in campsites, just in the bushes.
It's when you're in the shadows. People notice you there, and
they do.
You are a sage, you know, wise person. And
well, it's not even range anxiety. They're just saying, I'm
anxious,
just anxious. Crafty. Exactly. And I say, why? And they say, because you've been here all day and you don't know. And I'll go, well, you know, that's neither here nor there.
You know me.
I'll just walk backwards slowly into the darkness.
All right, well, speaking of the darkness, we are going to move to our garage.
Oh, yeah,
and
in the corner.
Vehicles that have been in it during the preceding week. Crafty, we will kick off with you, and you've been in a South Korean vehicle, but not one of the more common ones.
I've had the pleasure of being in the long wheelbase Musso, which is the SsangYong Ute.
Yep.
And I don't mind the thing. I had a nice little time in it. I didn't do real hardcore stuff. It's quite a long wheelbase, and I didn't want to spend all day getting myself out of strife. But lovely on road.
Yep. As a long wheelbase will often deliver.
Yeah, well, as you'd imagine, but nice and settled and just comfortable. And for that sort of vehicle, and I mean, those things are improving all the time. I was at the launch last year. I didn't get into the long wheelbase until just the other week. But I got into the shorter Musso, the mainstream Musso and the
Musso
Rexton.
Shorty.
That's it, the Rexton, and they've taken huge leaps forward in quality and just the look of the thing.
Is the long wheelbase on this car more about improving its load capacity, or what's the thinking behind having a long wheelbase one?
It's just to look like a Viking table on the highway, I think. It's quite.
It is a big beast.
Yeah. Well, the cabin's the same, and Maddie, correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am.
No, you're
but
right.
the cabin's the same sort of thing.
Yep.
And the tray
is bigger.
Yeah. I didn't try the load space, but I had a look.
Yeah.
And it's got all the the usual bits and pieces, tight end points and whatever else.
But this particular spec, this was the ELX spec, which is the entry level. It's the only one in the Musso range you can get with leaf springs.
Yeah, okay.
The rest of them have the coil spring
so
rear
that
end.
gives it a better load capacity?
Yes, better load capacity, but also, in my opinion, it's a nicer ride.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's less jittery at the back, less wobbly. And I was really impressed with that car. But there's one element, I don't know if you noticed, but the middle
door edges, the rear door.
Okay, there's two elements.
Yeah.
The rear door edges are like
They look like a machete.
The edge of a butcher's cleaver. Yeah. They're very sharp.
Which you're well familiar with.
Oh yeah.
Well, back in my butcher's days. But
the sausages M4 made back in the day were unbeatable.
He threw the sausage around, I tell you. Threw it around.
And then in the middle seat in the back, there's a lap only seatbelt. Which in 2019,
which is kind of draconian.
It goes against what they've done with the car. I mean, it's got AEB as standard, and it's got lane keep assist as standard, and it's got the airbags in the back.
Yeah.
The middle person's just going to go through the windscreen.
Might be something to do with the fundamental structure that they're dealing with.
Maybe.
Yeah, the cost of all that.
But overall, didn't mind the thing. I'm pretty impressed with how they're going.
Question without notice: what kind of pricing ballpark are we talking here for this?
Price.
I think this base model car is about $33,000.
Wow, that's not bad.
So the price is pretty sharp.
The price is good.
Yeah. And for what you get all this, all that sort of safety gear and that sort of thing. And barring a few of those sort of design things and, safety with the lap sash, but the door and those sort of things. Yeah. I mean, you could forgive it for those things as long as you don't bloody chop your kid in the head with the door. All right.
Speaking of, dissecting children, I'll go next.
What? Throwing the sausage around.
I was driving a Forester, Subaru Forester, the 2.5i, which is the entry point, as I understand it, into the Forester range.
Yep.
So it is talking of 33 grand. It's just under 34. So it's high 33s before you put it on the road. 2.5 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. About 136 kilowatts, 239 newton metres, but everything happens fairly high in the rev range as a naturally aspirated engine
is
that's how it goes.
It's
all-wheel drive, no surprise. It's a Subaru.
Yep.
And look, it's loaded with safety for that money. Yeah. You get the eyesight system that Subaru has made its own, so that's in terms of advanced warning. So it helps facilitate AEB. You get lane departure, you get rear cross traffic alert, all of that stuff in a $33,000 SUV.
Cheap.
It's also well equipped. LED headlights, you get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, rain sensing wipers, all of the things that have a bit of a premium feel to them come in this car.
But at that price point.
At that price point. The only little niggle, I don't like a CVT, and this one was okay, but I just prefer a conventional.
They're heaps better than what they used to be.
They are indeed.
Surely, anyone would...
But I thought in terms of the equipment level that you're getting for that money and the way the car drives, wow, it's a pretty impressive package.
We've said it in the office a few times to ourselves that the base model Forester is all the Forester you really need.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's a really impressive car.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, the top spec version that we had in a comparison a couple of months ago fell short because it didn't feel like you were getting what you were paying. Where in this entry level grade, you just get into it and go, hang on,
it's really
it's how much?
It's just everything.
The other niggle, I'm not a fan of the 2-screen setup that Subaru tends to use. The little one up the top and the big one there. I find that a little bit distracting. Not a huge deal, but there it is.
Yep.
And you just got upset when you kept looking to, down to your ABBA playlist and the eyesight would beep. JC, look at me.
Mamma mia. What's all that about? Okay, and we'll move on to yourself, M4. So you've been in a Ford product.
Yes.
Fill us in.
The Ranger Sport, which is a new addition to the Ranger lineup. So, there's more Rangers.
More of them. It's like Land Rover. They're just going to be pumping
out parking rangers. They come out of the shadows where you've been lurking and just put the ticket on.
He likes to wear that uniform.
Yeah, I know how to fix the parking rangers. I've taken the windscreen wipers off my car.
So this Ranger Sport is based on the XLS. The XLS with the premium pack, which includes the 8-inch screen. It includes the digital screens on the dash, and
so the optional gear is included on that.
Included as part of
this
sport pack, and you also get 17-inch black alloy wheels. You get some black elements on the outside, like the grille, the door handles, the roll bar. And it looks really good.
Is it pay a bit more but get a lot? If you know what I mean. If you put those options on it, it'd be dearer.
Exactly. Okay. And actually they're doing some really, really sharp deals on Rangers at the moment. There's this car for a manual I think you can get for $47,500 and an auto at about $49,500. So
and for a ute with the works or what you need.
And that's under their official list pricing is $55,000 for the auto. And you're getting a nearly $10,000 discount if you include the on-roads if you buy one now. So
anyone would think they're in a war with Hilux. bucks and trying to win it.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but impressive so far. Ride is a little bit terse because of the slightly bigger wheels than the XLS that I drove a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. And it's the 3.2 litre only. So, that thrummy, thrusty sort of engine.
Good engine. 3.2
A little bit, if you're on and off the throttle, you sort of do notice that it's a bit laggy at times. But you do adapt your driving style to suit it. Yeah.
But you're a picky bugger.
Yeah.
You are, really.
I am.
You've got to face facts.
I think maybe it's because I was getting out of Teslas and I was used to just putting my foot down and go,
exactly. All right, now speaking of Teslas, it's time for MuskWatch. Righto, there's a bit to get through, so we'll rattle through it. It's another week in the world of the Dear Leader. So with a hat tip to the Observer is observing that Neuralink, which is Elon's business that's going to connect human brains with artificial intelligence coming from computers, they've set up a hypothetical scenario that's actually been inspired by Australian science fiction writer Greg Egan. That is, at birth, an AI device is inserted in your brain, which constantly monitors your brain's activity in order to learn how to mirror your thoughts and behaviours. By the time you're an adult, the device has perfectly backed up your brain and can think and behave just like you. Jeez. Then you have your original brain surgically removed and let the device be your new brain.
What?
At that point, which is the real you, your biological brain or the AI device?
Wow.
Implausible to think your consciousness could magically transfer to the unit upon the destruction of your brain. It's more likely that at the moment you opted to remove your brain, you inadvertently killed yourself. So what they're saying is that it's brain chip suicide. That as soon as you start putting anything into your brain and connecting it to AI via a computer, you're pretty much lining up for a bad experience.
But I'm waiting for Elon to announce his soul element. I'm sure he's working on the soul as well.
Probably, yeah.
He has no idea what that means.
But also, just on the brain chip thing,
yes,
I think a lot of new parents would opt for that in a kid if you could program it to sleep properly
and
eat properly
and
shut the hell up when you tell it what to do. With love, of course.
CarScoops has got onto the fact that a person called Amy DD, at least that's their online handle, has had the chip from her Tesla Model 3 keycard embedded in her arm. All right, so this happens. There are people who want to put their Opal cards or their public transport cards.
Yeah, that one guy did it, and didn't he have to get it cut out again?
I think maybe.
What she's done to make the process a whole lot smoother is she's dissolved the card in a container of acetone, had it encased in a biopolymer, and then went to a body modification studio
one of those blokes.
And had it slipped in there. Now, it says it all. Her initials are ADD. Right? I think there is some sort of issue with this person.
Potentially.
We'll have footage of, for anyone watching on YouTube, we will have some footage of said person behind us, so you can make your own call on that. Look, thanks to Teslarati on Twitter, they have said, Elon on Twitter said, watching a movie on Tesla version 10.0 is great, in large part due to the sound system. And then Kirsten Netton came back and said, Monty Python Easter eggs, please. To which Elon said, okay, so I bet he doesn't play credit or copyright on any of the Monty Python stuff that's about to find its way into people's Teslas.
He didn't with that Ride the Lightning photo, so he's got a bit of a history there.
Speaking of blow-ups, many listeners and viewers will have seen a Tesla Model 3 in Russia that burst into flames after a collision with a parked tow truck over the weekend. Speaking to Russian media, the driver, Alexei Tretyakov, said he was using autopilot when the crash occurred. He was going at about 100 kilometres an hour. Bear in mind, autopilot is meant to detect obstacles and slow down, but allegedly in this case, it didn't. And there were just some spectacular fireworks. That's really why we're having a look at this. I don't want to pick on Tesla too much. Obviously, cars, unfortunately, have these kinds of events from time to time.
Of course.
But it does look like a fireworks display, and people on YouTube will be able to have a look
popping
at
off right behind us.
And look, there is some form. We've had other instances where autopilot has failed to slow and stop the car, sadly, with fatal results. For one crash in California a couple of years ago. But Mr. Tretyakov escaped the accident with a broken leg, while his two children walked away unharmed. That's a good outcome. So you can watch that video.
So they walked away and he
conscience.
didn't.
He didn't walk away. He hobbled away. Or
the poor bastard.
The kids just left him there, just with a compound fracture.
Now, Electrek has reported on scrutiny of Tesla's executive departures. As a new report says, the turnover rate for execs reporting directly to Elon Musk is much higher than for other CEOs.
Am I surprised?
So the Bernstein analyst has come up with this research, and it says the annualised turnover for execs reporting to Elon Musk at Tesla is 44%, which he says is dramatically higher than the turnover of CEOs' direct reports at comparable companies. He claims the average turnover is 9% at other companies in Silicon Valley.
Wow.
So, and Yahoo Finance had a comment related to the whole thing, and Ivor said, well, Musk is a notorious sociopath, a bully, and a man who's never taken responsibility for anything in his life. So I can't imagine he's a pleasant man to work with.
Wow.
Ivor.
A little bit worried about defamation.
Who's Ivor?
Calling a spade a shovel.
Who's Ivor?
Ivor is just a commenter on Yahoo Finance.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
You want to hide behind your keyboard, champ?
So
start running.
The share
He's
price,
got your IP address.
The share price has dipped down to $219. That's down from $238 the last time we spoke.
Right.
Few things have happened. Obviously, there's been a substantial meltdown in the US stock market, so everything, or just about everything, seems to have softened off. There's also been that staff turnover report, which various outlets have been claiming played a part, and just might be some poor PR from an exploding Model 3 in Russia as well. That doesn't help you.
Not at all.
All contributing factors.
So, with that, I think we have reached the finish line. Thank you, Crafty.
No problem.
And
thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Great fun as usual. And speaking of great fun, thanks to Mr. Pritchard for his insight and creativity in producing the show.
Can I just hold you there for a second? Again, I'd just like to say, have you ever seen those Van Damme movies? You know where he does the splits?
Yeah.
Where he does the
like when he did it between the Volvos.
Yeah,
the
between
Volvo
the
trucks.
Volvos, yeah. I love how Pritchard's done the
been
entire show.
pose.
He's done the entire show.
You notice
in
he's
the
also
splits.
been doing some manscaping. He's
I
decided
thought that
to
was a bonsai,
less
frankly.
hirsute than last time round.
I didn't know what was going on there. I was just admired the flexibility, but don't even
And
know
the
whether
endurance.
he's got a... I think you're going to have a
Stamina.
licence for that sort of stuff. But anyway,
mate.
yeah, good on you, mate. Very flexible.
Please pass on the word about the podcast and let us know your thoughts by searching for CarsGuide on Facebook and Instagram using the hashtag CGPodcast, or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. If you're an iTunes listener, please rate and review us, and remember you can watch us on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Until next week, my wife has dropped the hint that she'd like to spice things up a bit. Says she'd love a surprise. So just between us, I've cut her brake lines.
Recipe for a happy marriage.
Jesus.